The little girl calls 911 begging to save her mom. When the police arrive they are shocked to see the atmosphere of the small apartment. James, the father of 3-year-old Lucy, stormed in with a scowl, his bloodshot eyes intensifying the suffocating tension in the room. Elena, Lucy's mother, startled, turned around, her hand trembling as she washed a bowl in the kitchen, causing it to slip and clatter loudly into the sink. "James, what are you doing?" Elena yelled, her voice shaky. James didn't reply. He stormed further inside, angrily throwing his bag onto the floor, scattering its contents everywhere. Lucy, who had been playing with her stuffed bear Pepe in the living room, quickly hid behind the sofa, her frightened eyes peeking out through the crack in the door. "Who do you think you are to talk to me like that?" James roared, his bloodshot eyes blazing. He lunged at Elena, grabbing her wrist tightly and yanking her toward him, making her struggle in vain. "How many times have I told you? You need to keep this house clean," James shouted, pointing toward the dining table, where a few plates remained unwashed. "What the hell do you even do all day?" Elena took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "James, I've been working all day. But you don't need to yell like this." Before she could finish her sentence, James stepped forward and shoved her forcefully to the floor. Her face twisted in pain, but she struggled to sit up, leaning on her hands. "James! What are you doing? Don't do this in front of Lucy." "Shut up!" James yelled, his voice brimming with menace. He grabbed Elena's wrist tightly and yanked her again, her struggles futile. Lucy covered her mouth, trying not to cry out loud. Trembling, she grabbed the toy phone her mother had given her for her last birthday. After pressing random buttons for a while, she realized it wasn't real. Determined, Lucy tiptoed to her mother's bedside table and took the real phone. Taking a deep breath, she dialed 911, just as her mother had taught her. "911, this is Charles. How can I help you?" Lucy tried to steady her trembling voice. "Mister, please help my mom. She's hurt." Charles quickly realized the caller was a child. His voice softened, trying to reassure her. "Calm down, sweetie. What's your name? Where is your mom?" "My name is Lucy. I don't remember the address. Our door is blue." Charles frowned, understanding the gravity of the situation. He quickly alerted the rapid response team while keeping Lucy on the line. "All right, Lucy. Can you look around and see anything else special? We'll get to you as soon as we can." In the living room, James, seething with anger, scanned the area. His eyes darted around, fists clenched. "Lucy! Where are you? Come out right now." His voice thundered, like a predator chasing its prey. Elena tried to stand up, her whole body aching. "James, stop it. You're making this worse." "Lucy is just a child," she yelled, her voice cracking with fear. James spun around, his gaze menacing. "Shut up. You're the one spoiling her." He stormed toward Elena, grabbed her wrist, and yanked her so hard that she fell again. Her face contorted in pain, but she still tried to resist. Meanwhile, Lucy was hiding in her mother's closet, trying her best to stay silent. She pressed the phone tightly to her ear, listening to Charles on the other end. "Sweetheart, are you still there?" "We're on our way," Charles reassured her. Mister. Lucy whispered, trying to stifle her sobs. "Please hurry. I'm scared." Charles could hear her sniffles, his heart pounding. He spoke into his radio to the rapid response team, "We've got a child in danger. Narrow the search around San Marcos Street, near the small park." A crashing sound from the living room startled Lucy. James had shattered one of Elena's vases in a fit of rage. He paused for a moment, breathing heavily like a predator, before storming into the bedroom. "Lucy! Do you think you can hide in here and get away? Come out, or your mother will pay the price." His voice dripped with menace, sending chills down Elena's spine. "Stop, James. Don't hurt her." Elena screamed, struggling to stand. But James ignored her completely. He headed to the bedroom and flung the door open. His eyes scanned the room before settling on the closet. A sinister smile spread across his face. Outside, Mary, the upstairs neighbor, heard the loud noises and yelling. Worried, she went downstairs and knocked on the door. "Elena. Is everything okay? I heard a lot of noise." James froze at the sound of Mary's voice. He looked at Elena, who was huddled on the floor, and gestured for her to stay silent. After a few seconds, he opened the door, forcing a strained smile. "Everything's fine, Mary. I just dropped something." Mary squinted, unconvinced. "But I heard yelling. Is Elena okay?" "Elena is resting," James replied coldly, slamming the door shut before Mary could say more. Lucy held her breath, praying the neighbor would call for help. But James turned back. His eyes locked on the closet as he took heavy steps toward it. "You're in here, aren't you, Lucy?" Lucy trembled, trying not to make a sound. But James heard her faint sobs. He yanked the closet door open. "Come out right now." Lucy screamed, "Don't hurt Mom anymore. Mister, help me." James snatched the phone from Lucy's hands and hurled it to the floor, shattering it. Elena lunged forward to intervene, but James shoved her hard, causing her to collapse again. On the other end, Charles heard Lucy's scream before the line went dead. He clenched his radio tightly and shouted to his team, "We need to move faster. The situation is critical." James stood still for a moment, his wild eyes staring at Lucy, the small child trembling at his feet. Elena tried to get up from the floor, but the pain in her arm made her stop. "James, please. Don't hurt her." Elena pleaded, her voice breaking. James grabbed Lucy by the collar, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Lucy screamed, her tiny hands clutching at his shirt. "Mommy. Help me. Who do you think you are, calling the police, huh?" James snarled. "What kind of mother teaches her kid this? Or do you want me to teach her some respect?" "No, please." Elena sobbed, crawling on the floor. "James, I'm begging you." James threw Lucy harshly onto the floor and stood tall, his gaze icy as he looked at the terrified mother and child. "You think you can get away from me? Don't even dream about it." Outside, Mary remained in the hallway, hearing the muffled sounds from the apartment. She bit her lip, trembling as she pulled her phone from her coat pocket. "Police. This is Mary from the apartment complex on San Marcos Street. I hear loud noises and screams from Elena's unit downstairs. I think something's wrong." Elsewhere, Charles received the report from dispatch immediately. "We have the address," he informed his team. "Move fast, this is escalating." Inside the apartment, James had locked the door. Elena clung tightly to Lucy, whispering, "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. You have to be brave, all right?" But Lucy only shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You taught her to be strong, huh?" James sneered. "Let's see how strong she really is when I deal with you right in front of her." "Don't hurt Mom," Lucy shouted, stepping in front of Elena. Her small eyes were full of fear, but there was a glimmer of determination. "Dad, please, don't hurt Mom anymore." James froze, as if Lucy's words had pierced through the last shred of reason in him. But the pause lasted only a few seconds. He grabbed Elena's arm tightly, pulling her to her feet. Elena cried out in pain but tried not to let Lucy witness any more of the violence. "Lucy, look away," she yelled. But Lucy didn't look away. She stood there, her wide eyes fixed on her father as he dragged her mother toward the living room. James furiously threw Elena onto the sofa, his eyes never leaving Lucy. "You want to teach her how to be a decent person? Fine. Let me teach both of you. Meanwhile, Mary couldn't just stand by. She decided to call for help from the neighbors. Paul. Come out, I need your help, she banged on the door of the neighboring apartment. Paul, a middle-aged man who lived alone, opened the door with a look of surprise. What's going on, Mary? Something's wrong at Elena's apartment. I just called the police, but I think that lunatic James might do something dangerous. Did you hear the screaming? Paul nodded, his expression growing serious. All right, we need to find a way to help them or draw attention from outside. Let me think of something. Inside the apartment, Elena tried to stay calm. She whispered to Lucy, "Sweetheart, you have to listen to me. If you get a chance, run and find help, okay? But I don't want to leave you." Lucy whispered, her tears streaming down. "Listen to me. You're my hope," Elena said, her eyes filled with love despite the pain and fear coursing through her body. James turned back, glaring at the two of them. "What are you whispering about? Tell me." Suddenly, loud knocking interrupted him, making him freeze. "Elena. Lucy. Can you hear me? It's Paul." James gritted his teeth. "Who's that out there? Did you call him here?" Elena shook her head frantically. "No, I didn't call anyone." "Get lost, Paul!" James shouted, storming toward the door. Paul didn't back down. He kept pounding on the door, applying pressure. "I know what you're doing, James. The police are on their way. You'd better stop before it's too late." James grew angrier. He looked at Elena and Lucy. "Fine, if they're coming, I'll wait. But before that, I'll teach you both a lesson." The atmosphere in the apartment grew oppressive. Lucy trembled, hiding in her mother's arms. She stared at James, her small face filled with fear. Elena held her daughter tightly, her tear-filled eyes trying to maintain a facade of calmness. Inside, James began to panic. He glanced back and forth between Elena, Lucy, and the front door. "The police, huh? They think they can just waltz in here." "Not a chance," he muttered, pulling a folding knife from his pocket and raising it threateningly. "You think I won't do it?" Elena froze. "James, don't. You're going too far. Too far." James sneered, raising the knife higher and pointing it directly at Elena. "Too far or not, I decide that. You think you have any rights here? This is my house, my life, and I'll do whatever I want." Lucy burst into tears. "Don't hurt Mom. Please, help us," she screamed instinctively, but James lunged at her and clamped his hand over her mouth. "Shut up," he growled, his eyes wild. Elena rushed toward him, trying to pull his hand away from her daughter. "Let her go, James. You're a monster." James shoved Elena hard onto the sofa, causing her to hit her head on the armrest. Dizziness and pain radiated through her body. Lucy was still trapped in his grip, but she struggled, trying to escape his harsh grasp. Outside, Paul continued pounding on the door. "James, let them go now. The police are almost here. Don't do anything stupid." Mary had returned by this point, holding a broom. "We have to do something, Paul. I can't stand the thought of what might happen to Elena and Lucy." Paul nodded, thinking quickly. "I'll try cutting the power. If there are no lights, maybe he'll panic." Inside, James glared at Elena, who was struggling to stand. He sneered and let go of Lucy, only to turn his attention elsewhere. "You think you can fight me? You're nothing but a weakling, living off the pity of others." "That's not true," Elena shouted, ignoring the pain coursing through her body. "I don't need you, James. And I won't let you hurt my daughter." Her words only enraged James further. He moved closer, raising the knife in a threatening manner. Lucy screamed, "Mom! Run!" But Elena didn't run. She stood in front of her daughter, her hands trembling but her gaze unwavering. If you want to do something, do it to me. Don't touch Lucy. James paused for a moment, but only to sneer at them both. Foolish. Do you think I care about your noble words? It's all nonsense. At that moment, the electricity suddenly cut off, plunging the apartment into darkness. Lucy gasped, but Elena quickly embraced her, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here." James cursed loudly, slamming the knife onto a table. What the hell is this? He stormed toward the hallway to check, but the dim emergency lighting wasn't enough to guide him. Outside, Paul whispered to Mary, "Good. He'll be more disoriented now. Maybe we can buy more time until the police arrive." In the dark, Elena tried to move quietly, guiding Lucy away from James. "Lucy, listen to me. We need to find a place to hide. Do you remember the closet?" Lucy nodded, trying to hold back her sobs. The mother and daughter moved quietly, hugging the wall as they made their way toward the corner of the bedroom. But the sound of James's footsteps echoed behind them, making them freeze in place. "You think the darkness will save you, Elena?" His voice cut through the silence, cold and menacing. "You can't hide from me." Elena whispered, "Lucy, get into the closet. I'll distract him." "No, Mom." Lucy whimpered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to leave you. You have to do as I say, Lucy. I love you." Elena gently pushed her daughter into the closet, then turned back and deliberately knocked over a lamp to make a noise. "There you are." James lunged toward the sound, grabbing hold of Elena. She struggled, kicking him hard in the leg. "Let go of me, James. I'm not afraid of you." He sneered, gripping her arm tightly. "Oh really? Let's see how strong you really are." Meanwhile, Lucy crouched in the closet, clutching her stuffed bear, Pepe, tightly. She whispered a prayer under her breath, "Please, help my mom." Outside, the sound of police sirens echoed faintly in the distance, a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. But inside the apartment, James still had control, and the darkness made the situation even more tense. In the suffocating darkness of the apartment, Elena's ragged breaths mingled with the heavy sound of James's footsteps. He held her arm in a crushing grip, dragging her across the living room. "You think you're so clever, Elena? You're nothing but a joke," he hissed, his breath reeking of alcohol. Elena didn't respond, biting back the pain. She glanced around in the darkness, desperately searching for something to defend herself with. Her hand fumbled along the floor and landed on a small piece of wood from a broken chair. James yanked her arm violently, causing the wood to slip from her grasp. "Don't think I don't know what you're trying to do," he said in a threatening tone. "I'm not as stupid as you think." In the closet, Lucy tried to keep herself from sobbing out loud. She hugged her stuffed bear, Pepe, tightly and whispered a prayer her mother had taught her. "Dear God, please help my mom. Please." Outside, Mary and Paul were still doing everything they could to draw attention. Mary banged loudly on the apartment door, shouting, "James. We know what you're doing. Open the door right now." Paul, now holding a flashlight from his own apartment, shone its beam through a small window crack in Elena's unit. He whispered to Mary, "We just need to buy a little more time. The police are almost here." "But what if he hurts Elena and Lucy?" Mary asked, her voice trembling with worry. "That's why we have to keep trying," Paul replied, his expression resolute. Inside, Elena tried to stay calm and spoke slowly, "James, you don't have to do this. We can solve everything peacefully." James let out a bitter laugh, his eyes gleaming in the darkness. "Peacefully? Do you think I want to hear your fake moralizing? All I want is for you to shut up and do what I say." Elena bit her lip, suppressing her anger. "What about Lucy? She's just a child. You can't hurt her." James roared, his voice filled with rage. Do you think I'm going to let a little brat like her ruin my life? She's just like you, always defying me. Elena tried to use his loss of control to stall for time. If you say you want to control your life, then why do you need to threaten a child? That doesn't prove anything, it just shows how weak you are. Her words seemed to enrage James further. He raised his hand as if to strike her, but the sound of police sirens in the distance made him pause. You really called the cops? James turned sharply, his bloodshot eyes boring into Elena. Elena bit her lip, saying nothing. She hoped her silence would make him hesitate. Meanwhile, Lucy heard the sirens, and a small glimmer of hope sparked in her young heart. But she didn't dare leave the closet, fearing that James would see her. Outside, Charles and the rapid response team had reached the building. He gestured to his teammates. Team 1, check the main entrance. Team 2, find a way in through the balcony or windows. We need to ensure the safety of the 2 victims. Mary waved from the hallway, shouting, Here. Elena's apartment has the blue door. Charles nodded and sprinted up the stairs as fast as he could. In his mind, Lucy's cries over the phone still echoed vividly. We have to save them, he told himself. Inside the apartment, James was beginning to panic. He looked around, searching for ways to lock the entrances securely. The cops think they can take me down easily. They're wrong. Elena used this moment of distraction to whisper to Lucy, Sweetheart, I need you to do something very important. When you have the chance, run straight outside and don't look back, okay? Lucy shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I don't want to. I'll be fine, Lucy. I need you to be safe first, Elena said, her voice trembling but firm. James turned back to them, his eyes blazing with suspicion. What are you two whispering about? Don't think I don't know. His heavy footsteps grew closer. Elena tightened her grip on Lucy's hand, her gaze filled with worry. One thought ran through her mind, the police have to get here in time. We can't end like this. Outside, Charles had reached Elena's door. He listened carefully to the sounds inside and turned to his team. He's barricading the door. We need to prepare to breach, but wait for the order. Inside the thick darkness of the apartment, everything seemed frozen for a moment. James took another step forward, the distance between him and Elena shrinking. James stopped, his heavy breathing echoing in the tense silence. His crazed eyes darted between Elena and Lucy. In the dim room, he looked like a predator cornering its prey. You think you can fool me? The cops will never get in here. Elena stepped back, trying not to tremble. Her hand brushed against the edge of the table, feeling something solid, a small flashlight that James often left there. Quickly, she grabbed it and hid it behind her back. James, please stop. You don't have to do this. Shut up, he screamed. Lucy burst into tears, her tiny sobs breaking the suffocating silence. Mommy, please save Mommy. Elena turned to her daughter, her gaze filled with determination. Lucy, I told you. Do as I said. Run. But James realized what she was planning. He lunged forward, blocking Lucy's path. Not so fast. The kid stays right here. Outside, Charles had reached the floor where Elena's apartment was. He stopped to assess the front door. It's locked from the inside. We'll need to breach, but wait for the signal. The safety of the hostages comes first. Paul hurried over, speaking urgently. You're the police, right? I can hear the child crying. Please, act quickly. Charles nodded, signaling his team to get ready. We'll move in as soon as we have an opening. Inside the apartment, James had lost all control. He grabbed Elena, yanking her violently, causing her to fall to the floor. Lucy screamed and rushed to try to pull her mother away from him. Let go of my mommy. James turned, glaring angrily at Lucy. You don't listen, do you? Fine. Let's see how tough you are. He raised his hand to strike Lucy, but Elena acted quickly, smashing the flashlight into his arm. James yelled in pain, stepping back briefly, but quickly turned to her with fury in his eyes. You dare hit me, he snarled, lunging at Elena. But before he could do anything, a loud bang came from the front door. This is the police. Open the door now. Charles's authoritative voice boomed. James froze for a moment but then let out a bitter laugh. The police? Let's see who wins this game. He yanked Elena to her feet, using her as a shield. If you come in here, she won't make it out alive, he shouted, his voice filled with menace. Outside, Charles heard James's threats. He turned to his team, his expression grave. He's holding a hostage. We need a careful plan. No one gets hurt. Inside, Elena struggled to stay calm. She whispered to James, you don't have to do this. Let me go. We can talk this out. James tightened his grip, his voice icy. I don't talk to cops. And you, Elena, don't think you can talk your way out of this. Lucy sat trembling in the corner, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. Her wide eyes stared into the darkness. The sounds of her mother's whispers and James's shouts made her small heart pound fiercely. Please save my mommy, Lucy whispered, as if Charles could hear her prayer through the thick walls. Outside, Mary stood near Charles, her hands trembling. Please save them, she murmured, her voice heavy with worry. Charles nodded, turning to his team. Team 1, get ready to breach. Team 2, block all escape routes. We're going in to rescue them. Inside the apartment, James was growing more agitated. He glanced at Elena, then at the door. Fine. If the police want to come in, I'll show them what's waiting for them. Elena took advantage of the moment when James was distracted, shoving him hard. Lucy, run, she shouted. Lucy heard her mother's words, but her small body remained frozen with fear. James quickly turned back, grabbing Elena's arm. You think you're clever, don't you? No one is getting out of here. Charles, hearing the loud screams from inside, turned to his team. Move in now. The door shook as the response team began working on breaking the lock. Elena looked at James, her heart pounding, clinging to the fragile hope that this would end before it was too late. James yanked Elena hard, holding her in front of him like a human shield. He shouted loudly, his voice a mix of panic and rage, don't you dare come in here. If you break that door, she won't make it out alive. Elena could feel James's hand tightening painfully on her shoulder. She winced, but her eyes stayed fixed on Lucy. She had to stall for time. James, you don't have to do this. The police just want to talk to you. No one needs to get hurt. Shut up. James roared, shoving Elena into the wall. He turned his attention to the door, where the relentless banging continued. Lucy clutched her stuffed bear, Pepe, trembling violently. Her mother's screams made her choke back sobs. She whispered to herself, Mister, please come save my mom. Outside, Charles spoke into his radio in a low voice. He's panicking. Team 1, get ready. We need to act the moment we have an opening. Paul stood nearby, his fists clenched tightly. Please don't let him hurt them. Elena doesn't deserve this. Mary whispered, Lucy is just a little girl. I don't even want to imagine what will happen if we're too late. Inside, James grabbed a chair and barricaded it against the door. He muttered to himself, his eyes wild. They think they can catch me? Not a chance. Elena struggled to her feet, the pain in her shoulder making her stagger. She spoke softly, James, let Lucy go. She has nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with it. James sneered, his grin cold. She's just like you, always defying me. Elena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Lucy is an innocent child. You can't hurt her. Let her go, and I'll stay. I promise I won't fight back. James looked at Elena, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. But it lasted only a moment before he laughed coldly. You think I'm stupid? If I let her go, the police will rush in immediately. No, both of you will die with me. Outside, Mary heard the shouting and couldn't wait any longer. She stepped forward, banging hard on the door. James! Stop it now. You can't keep doing this. The police are here, and they won't let you go. James flinched and turned toward the door. Shut up, old lady. This isn't your business. Mary didn't back down, hitting the door even harder. If you don't want this to end badly, let Elena and Lucy go right now. Don't do something stupid. Paul stood beside her, gently taking her hand. Be careful, Mary. He's out of control. But the noise had distracted James. Seeing the opportunity, Elena quickly lunged and pulled Lucy toward her. Run, Lucy. Run now. Lucy froze in shock, unable to react before James turned back. You think you can trick me, Elena? He lunged at Lucy, but Elena stepped in front of her daughter just in time. James grabbed Elena by the shoulders and shoved her forcefully to the ground. Elena cried out as her head hit the floor hard. Lucy screamed, Mommy! Mommy! Outside, Charles heard Lucy's scream. The rapid response team prepared their tools to breach the door, but it was taking too long. Charles slammed his hand against the wall, desperately searching for another way in. Inside, James glared at Elena. This is your fault, Elena. Everything that's happened today is because of you. Elena didn't respond. She crawled toward Lucy, her eyes filled with pleading. Lucy, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. James stepped back, holding the knife in front of him, ready to confront anyone who entered. The banging on the door grew louder, signaling that help was near. For a moment, Elena looked at Lucy, her eyes conveying everything. You have to be strong, my love. Everything will be okay. The final blows on the door echoed loudly, but it still held firm. For a second, everything in the apartment seemed frozen in tense silence. Then a loud crash reverberated through the small apartment as the door burst open. The rapid response team stormed in, weapons at the ready. Charles led the charge, his determined eyes scanning the room quickly. James stood in the middle of the living room, gripping the knife tightly and pulling Elena in front of him. Despite her pain, Elena tried to stay calm. Don't hurt anyone, James. This can end without anyone getting hurt, she said, her voice shaking. Charles raised a hand, signaling his team to hold back, his focus locked on James. James, let her go. We don't want to hurt you. But if you don't cooperate, we'll have no choice but to act. James let out a cold laugh, raising the knife threateningly. You think you can take me down? Not a chance. If anyone comes closer, I'll. Before he could finish, a small voice rang out from the back of the room. Lucy, hiding behind the closet, could no longer stay silent. Mister, save my mom. James whipped around, his crazed eyes searching for the source of the voice. But in his moment of distraction, Charles signaled the team. Two officers moved in swiftly, approaching from both sides. Stop right now, James. Don't hurt anyone. Charles commanded, his powerful voice echoing through the room. James reacted instinctively, yanking Elena back toward the wall. The knife in his hand trembled as he pointed it toward the officers. I warn you. Don't come any closer. Charles saw an opening. Taking a step forward, his voice remained calm but firm. James, there's no way out. Let her go and surrender. We'll make sure everything is handled fairly. Elena felt James's grip loosen slightly. She screamed, "Lucy, run!" Lucy darted out from behind the closet, her small legs wobbling. She nearly tripped, but an officer quickly scooped her up, carrying her out of the living room. Lucy burst into tears, reaching toward her mother. "Mommy!" Elena watched her daughter being taken to safety, tears streaming down her face. She knew that at least Lucy was safe now. Realizing Lucy was gone, James lost all control. He growled and lunged toward Charles, but another officer tackled him from behind. The knife clattered to the floor with a cold metallic clang. James thrashed and shouted, but he was overpowered and restrained. Charles rushed to Elena's side, helping her to her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Elena nodded, her voice trembling. "Where's Lucy? Is my daughter safe?" Charles turned and signaled to his team. Lucy, now in the safe arms of a female officer, was quickly brought over. The little girl ran into her mother's arms, crying uncontrollably. "Mommy! I was so scared." Elena hugged her daughter tightly, tears streaming down her face. "It's okay now, my love. We're safe." Meanwhile, James, now handcuffed, was being escorted out of the apartment. He continued shouting, his crazed eyes darting around. "You don't understand. This isn't my fault. She drove me to this." Charles ignored him, signaling for his team to take him away. Turning back to Elena and Lucy, his eyes were filled with compassion. "You're safe now," he said softly. "We're going to take you both to a safe place," Charles said, his deep voice calm and reassuring. "You need medical attention, and we'll make sure James can't hurt either of you again." Elena nodded, still holding Lucy tightly. thank you so much," she said, her voice choked with emotion. James, handcuffed and being escorted out of the apartment, continued yelling, his crazed eyes darting around. "You don't understand. This isn't my fault. She's the one who pushed me to this point," he screamed, struggling uselessly against the officers. Charles watched him go, his gaze cold and resolute. "You will answer for everything you've done," he said, his voice low and firm. In the hallway, Mary and Paul watched as James was taken away. Mary let out a sigh of relief, tears streaming down her face. "Finally, they're safe." Paul nodded, placing a comforting hand on Mary's shoulder. "Yes, but I think it will be a long road for them. They'll need time to recover from everything that's happened." Charles turned back to Mary and Paul. "Thank you both for your help. What you did was crucial in rescuing them." Mary shook her head, her voice trembling. "I just did what any neighbor should do. Elena and Lucy didn't deserve this." Charles nodded, his expression serious. "And I promise you, James will be held accountable under the law." Elena and Lucy were carefully guided out of the apartment, the flashing lights from the police cars outside illuminating the hallway. Lucy clung to her mother, her wide eyes still darting nervously around. Despite her bruises and pain, Elena held herself steady, trying to comfort her daughter. Charles walked alongside them, maintaining a respectful distance to avoid adding to their stress. "We'll take you to the hospital for a checkup," he said, his voice steady with responsibility. "Afterward, if necessary, we'll arrange a safe place for you and your daughter." Elena nodded, her hand never leaving Lucy's. "Thank you, officer. I don't know what we would have done without you and your team." As they exited, Mary approached, tears in her eyes. "Elena, are you okay? Is Lucy hurt?" Elena managed a weak smile. "We'll be okay, Mary. Thank you for everything." Mary nodded, turning her attention to Lucy. "Sweet little girl, it's over now. You're safe." Lucy looked at Mary, her eyes still wet with tears. She whispered, "Thank you." Paul stood nearby, his expression serious. "If you need anything, Elena, let us know. Everyone in this building is here for you and your daughter." Elena felt a glimmer of warmth in her heart. The support from her neighbors gave her a small but vital sense of hope after everything they had endured. "We'll remember this, Paul. Thank you." Charles guided Elena and Lucy to a waiting police car, carefully helping them into the back seat. A female officer handed Lucy a thin blanket to wrap around herself. "You were very brave," the officer said to her with a gentle smile. Lucy didn't say anything, simply nodding, but her eyes seemed to regain a faint spark of light. Elena squeezed her daughter's hand, as if to share her strength with her. During the ride to the hospital, Charles tried to gather more information. "How long has this been happening with James?" he asked, his tone calm but not pressing. Elena stared out the window, her gaze distant. "For years. But it got worse recently. He lost his job, started drinking, and became more violent. I tried to endure it for Lucy, but I just couldn't take it anymore." Charles nodded, his eyes reflecting sympathy. "You did the right thing by reaching out for help. No one should have to endure this, especially not a child." Elena turned to look at Lucy, her heart heavy with emotion. "I just want Lucy to have a peaceful life. She's too young to go through something like this." Charles didn't respond, but his determined expression said everything. He would do whatever it took to ensure that Elena and Lucy no longer had to live in fear. At the hospital, medical staff were already waiting. Elena was taken for an examination while a nurse attended to Lucy. The little girl refused to let go of her mother, requiring the staff to gently reassure her. "I'm not going anywhere, Lucy," Elena said, bending down to look her daughter in the eyes. "I'll be right here with you." Lucy nodded slightly and allowed the nurse to check her arms and legs. "Does anything hurt?" the nurse asked gently. "No," Lucy whispered, her eyes still fixed on Elena. Meanwhile, Charles stood in the hallway, speaking with a colleague. "We need to investigate James further," he said. "He doesn't seem to be just an abuser. His behavior was strange, as if he was hiding something." His colleague, Officer Marcos, nodded. "I thought the same. Maybe we should go back to the apartment and take a closer look." Charles agreed. "Do it now. I want to know what's behind his rage." After their checkups, Elena and Lucy were brought to a small room to rest. The female officer from earlier returned with a juice box and some crackers for Lucy. "You need to eat something to regain your strength," she said gently. Lucy looked at her mother for approval. Elena nodded, stroking her daughter's hair softly. "Eat, sweetheart. You need to stay strong." As Lucy ate, Charles entered the room, carrying a fresh blanket and clean clothes provided by the hospital. "We've arranged temporary housing for you. For tonight, you'll stay here and rest," he said. Elena looked at Charles, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You've done so much for us. I don't know how to thank you." Charles gave a faint smile. "It's my job, but it's also my responsibility as a human being. You and your daughter deserve a better life." Lucy, now finished with her snack, turned to Charles. "Will you protect my mommy?" she asked, her small voice trembling with hope. Charles knelt down to her level and smiled warmly. "Yes, Lucy. I'll do everything I can to protect you and your mom." Lucy managed a weak smile, but her eyes now shone with a faint glimmer of hope. Elena held her daughter close, feeling a fragile sense of peace beginning to return after the chaos. Outside the room, Charles received a message from Marcos, found something unusual at the apartment. "You should come back right away." Charles frowned, his expression turning serious. "Elena, I need to leave for a while. There's something we need to investigate at the apartment. Rest here. You're safe now." Elena nodded, holding Lucy tighter. "Thank you, Charles." Charles left the hospital, but a sense of unease weighed on him. What his team had found might reveal something more about the man who had terrorized this family. Charles hurried back to the apartment, where Marcos and the response team were still investigating. He stepped over the wreckage in the living room, his focus on Marcos, who stood near a large table holding a file. "What did you find?" Charles asked, his tone serious. Marcos looked up, his expression grave. "In this drawer," he said, pointing to a small locked cabinet they had opened using specialized tools. "There are medical records and some old prescriptions. From what I've read, James has a history of mental illness. These are treatment records from years ago." Charles furrowed his brow, flipping through the documents in Marcos's hands. The records revealed that James had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and behavioral control issues, with recommendations for strict adherence to medication and therapy. However, the prescriptions had expired 2 years ago, suggesting that James had likely stopped treatment for an extended period. Charles skimmed through a note written by the doctor. "The patient exhibits violent behaviors when not treated properly. Signs of heightened hostility, particularly in stressful family environments, are evident. Close supervision by family members and strict adherence to treatment are strongly recommended." He took a deep breath, his expression becoming even more serious. "Does Elena know anything about this?" Charles asked. Marcos shook his head. "There's no evidence that she does. It seems like James intentionally hid this." Some of the documents were tightly wrapped and tucked away in the back of the drawer. Charles tightened his grip on the folder, trying to piece together the circumstances surrounding Elena and James. He recalled the pain in Elena's eyes, the bruises on her body, and the panic in Lucy's voice. James's mental health history made the situation more complicated, not just a case of domestic violence but also the story of a man whose actions were shaped by untreated mental illness. "We need to share this information with Elena," Charles said thoughtfully. "She deserves to know the truth. But we need to handle it carefully so she doesn't feel guilt or blame herself for this." Marcos nodded in agreement. "I'll finalize the report and send it to our superiors. One thing's certain, James is a serious danger, and we need to ensure he can't harm them again." At the hospital, Elena sat on the bed with Lucy in her arms. She gently stroked her daughter's hair, her gaze distant, lost in heavy thoughts. Charles entered the room, holding the folder in a paper bag. He paused for a moment, his expression softening as he saw Lucy fast asleep in her mother's embrace. "Elena," Charles said gently. "I need to talk to you for a moment." Elena looked up, her eyes weary. "Is something wrong?" "Lucy is okay, isn't she?" "Lucy is fine. But I went back to your apartment and found some things that might help you understand what's been happening." Charles sat down in the chair near the bed, placing the paper bag on the table. Elena glanced at the bag, a hint of confusion on her face. "What is it?" Charles opened the bag, took out the medical records, and placed them in front of her. "These are James's medical records. He was diagnosed with a mental illness. This could explain his loss of control over the past few months." Elena froze, her eyes widening as she looked at the documents in front of her. "I had no idea," her voice trembled as she reached out to touch the first page. Charles nodded, his tone steady. "I think he hid it from you. These papers were stored very carefully, almost as if he didn't want anyone to know. But this is the truth, Elena. James needed treatment, and not following through with it likely made his condition worse." Elena flipped through the pages, reading about the diagnosis and prescriptions. Her heart sank as she realized that James might have been fighting his own internal battles all this time. The warnings about violent behavior, the instructions for close supervision, all of it left her feeling both shocked and heartbroken. "He never told me," Elena whispered. "I thought it was just anger, frustration, but this is so much worse." She placed a hand on her forehead as if to soothe the growing headache. "I don't know what to think anymore." Charles looked at her with deep compassion. "You can't blame yourself for this. James's choice to hide it shows that he didn't want to face his own issues. But what matters now is that you and Lucy are safe, and James won't be able to hurt you again. Elena nodded, but a storm of emotions swirled inside her. She remembered James's outbursts, his yelling, and the destruction. Now, knowing the truth, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for the man she had once loved. Can he be treated? Elena asked, her voice shaky. I don't want Lucy to remember her father like this. No matter what he's done, he was still part of our lives. Charles nodded. James will undergo a psychological evaluation and might be required to enter mandatory treatment. That decision will depend on the court. The priority is ensuring your safety and Lucy's. Elena looked at her daughter, her heart aching as she thought about her future. I don't want Lucy to grow up with this fear. I'll do everything to protect her. Charles smiled softly. You're a strong mother, Elena. And I'll do everything I can to help you and Lucy start fresh. Elena held her daughter close, her eyes shining with determination. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least now she had hope to begin again. Elena stood under the warm sunlight outside the temporary housing provided by the police. Lucy was playing with a few children her age in the small yard, her smile brighter than it had been in a long time. The sight eased Elena's heart after so much pain. Charles approached, holding a cup of hot coffee. Elena, everything has been arranged. James will be transferred to a mandatory treatment center. This is his chance to face his issues and possibly change. Elena nodded slightly, her eyes still on her daughter. I just hope Lucy can forget those horrible memories. She's been through so much. Charles smiled, gently placing a hand on Elena's shoulder. I believe Lucy will be okay. She's strong, just like her mother. A month later, Elena began a new job at a small office near their new home. With the help of organizations that support survivors of domestic violence, she regained her confidence and found motivation to rebuild her life. Every evening, she and Lucy sat together, sharing stories and dreaming of a better future. Lucy, now smiling more often, ran to hug her mother after school one day. I love you so much, Mommy, she whispered. Elena hugged her tightly, her eyes glistening with tears. I love you too, Lucy. We'll always have each other, and everything will be okay. Under the golden sunset, Elena felt a new sense of hope blooming. Though the journey ahead was long, she knew she was stronger now, with a clear reason to keep going, Lucy's smile. Elena and Lucy's story reminds us that no one deserves to endure abuse, whether physical or emotional. A mother's courage to protect her child, along with timely support from those around her, highlights the power of love and compassion. The story underscores the importance of seeking help in the face of danger and the role of a community in standing against injustice. Most importantly, everyone deserves a fresh start and a safe life.